Cancer 27, a storm in a canyon. This is about a transformation following a crisis. We try and live comfortably, don't we? And make sure that nothing unexpected happens, nothing out of control occurs. Very few people live their lives entirely as if it was an adventure. But really, nature doesn't allow us to continue on that track indefinitely. Nature throws up a storm in our face. Metaphorically, I mean, this could be war, it could be personal divorce or personal misfortune or whatever. Something happens and we're thrown into an emotional turmoil, and our status quo cannot maintain. We have to make changes on a deep level permanently. This is the energy of transformation, and this is what we're discussing with Cancer 27. We have to understand that it is simply hubris, divine arrogance, to believe that we can tame nature. This is the major problem that we're facing today, that we've got this wrong. Humanity has tried to tame nature completely. And it's okay to work with it. It's a bit like a garden, you know, you can tame it a little bit, but you can't stop the weeds. You have to deal with storms as well with the garden. You know, things break all of a sudden, you know, and you just have to cope with that. And we can cope. That's the whole thing. This challenge that we're forced to meet demonstrates to us that there's so much more within us, so much more ability to cope. We have tremendous creative resources, tremendous power of resilience, of imagination, of determination. We all have this, and yet very few demonstrate that until and unless there is a storm of some kind. So the purpose of life is not to be born and die and make sure you're not uncomfortable or embarrassed between the two. That's not it. It's all about improvement, development of the soul, moving forward in our eternal journey. And there are two tracks, shall we say, or two attitudes of this. One is a slow escarpment, a gentle climb. Bit by bit we add things on to each other. We get more skillful, perhaps a little bit more wealthy. We have more connections. We have more influence. Bit by bit by bit by bit. As we get older, we become more so, more of who we are. And the other way in which we grow is suddenly. There are often rites of passage, we could call them, or moments when we're thrust into the deep end, where we're thrown in and we have to cope. And until then, we don't know that we can. We don't know how to cope. We need these emergencies if we are to access that other part of us, that passion. Each of us is passionate about something, and it's maybe hidden. It may be that we've suppressed it, or it's been suppressed out of us. But you go deep, deep down, everyone has passion. And that passion is not to be rubbed out by the processes of civilization. It can be tamed a little bit, often, most of the time, yes. But in the end, we've still got that animal nature, and we have to accept that. And we have to accept that as a part, an important part, a fundamental part of what we are and who we are. So we can see ourselves on both sides of this storm, not only as those who have to cope with a storm, but also those who are stormy. There are some situations where the necessary breakthrough energy is stormy. We have to allow our passions to rise to deal with some situations that will not be dealt with by negotiation or gentle persuasion or or anything gentle at all. Sometimes we just have to say, no, this must be the way I want it to be. I cannot tolerate this anymore. And there's this explosive energy almost, this storm-like energy. And like everything else in life, the passions pyramid, everything pyramids, everything stacks on top of what went before. And this does not exclude passionate feelings. So the more passionate we are, the more passionate we get until we're spent, like a storm. And that passion, if it's lost, means that we cannot break through the major challenges in life. And we might get stuck then, stuck in a terribly boring or worse kind of relationship, a boring or worse kind of job, a place that you don't want to live, a situation that just doesn't feed you and constantly makes life worse. This is not the exceptional case. This is almost the norm. I would say the majority of people are described like that. There's a large minority who are not. It's not a tiny or insignificant minority, but perhaps, I don't know, 10, 20% of the people, maybe 30, are happy enough. But that means that more than half are not. So it may be that you need to get passionate. You need to get a little bit angry sometimes. You need to get a little bit certain of something which you cannot validate or explain. A storm does not validate itself. And a person who's in a stormy emotion doesn't validate herself or himself. They just have these passions that must come out. Sometimes we must let them out. Of course, we don't want to direct that at someone. If at all possible, allow the passions just to be passions. If you have anger, I am angry, instead of, it's your fault that I'm angry, that blame spoils everything. But the admission, the celebration of your passion, as long as it's not directed against anyone else, is entirely healthy. Entirely. And the denial of it is entirely unhealthy. So deal with what you have to deal with. If it takes passion, then find your passion.